Captain Hyun-woo Kim stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. The Harmony's Edge moved slowly through space toward a new planet. This was what he loved most about his job. Every day brought new places to see and new people to meet. "Captain, we are getting close to the planet," said his pilot, Lieutenant Bo-Ram Song. She was young but very good at her job. "The scans show it is safe to land." Hyun-woo nodded. "Good. Tell the team to get ready. We want to make a good first impression if there are people living there." The ship landed on a flat area near what looked like a small city. The buildings were strange but beautiful. They were made of some kind of blue metal that shined in the sunlight. Smoke came from tall towers, which meant people were there. "Remember the rules," Hyun-woo told his team. "We are here to learn and make friends. No weapons unless someone attacks us first. We offer gifts and try to understand their language." This was how humans always did things. They had been exploring space for over 200 years now. They had met many different alien races. Some looked like giant insects. Others looked like walking trees. Some were made of crystal and light. But humans always tried to be peaceful with everyone. The aliens often thought this was strange. Most of the galaxy was always fighting. The big empires were always trying to take over smaller ones. Wars happened all the time. But humans were different. They liked to talk and trade instead of fight. Dr. Nari Park walked up to the captain. She was the best scientist on the ship. Her job was to study alien cultures and history. "Captain, I have been reading about this area of space. The locals call themselves the Rethan. They are supposed to be very friendly." "That is good news," Hyun-woo said. "Let us go meet them." The team walked out of the ship. The air smelled like flowers and rain. In the distance, they could see the Rethan people coming toward them. They looked like tall humans, but with blue skin and 4 arms. They moved in a group and seemed curious, but not afraid. The leader of the Rethan was an older female named Velthara. She spoke in her own language first, then switched to Basic, the common language most aliens used in space. "Welcome, humans, from Earth," she said with a smile. "We have heard about your people. You are the ones who do not fight, yes?" "We prefer to talk," Hyun-woo said. "Fighting is something we only do when we have no other choice. We brought gifts for your people." He handed her a small device that could translate languages and a collection of human music and art. The Rethan leader seemed very happy with these gifts. "Your people are strange but good," Velthara said. "Most who come here want our rare metals, or our land. You only want to learn about us." They spent the day learning about Rethan culture. The Rethan had lived on this planet for thousands of years. They were peaceful farmers and artists. They had no armies and no weapons except for hunting tools. "How do you protect yourselves?" asked Dr. Nari Park. "The big empires leave us alone," Velthara explained. "We have nothing they want, and we cause no trouble. Sometimes pirates come, but they usually just take a little food and leave." As the sun went down, the Rethan invited the humans to stay for dinner. They sat around a big fire and shared stories. The Rethan told tales of their ancestors. The humans told stories about Earth and the other worlds they had visited. "Tell us about the war people," said a young Rethan. "We hear there are races that only know how to fight." Lieutenant Bo-Ram looked uncomfortable. "There are some empires that solve all their problems with violence. The Velkari Empire is the biggest one. They have thousands of warships and control many star systems." "Do they ever attack humans?" asked Velthara. "No," Hyun-woo said. "We are useful to them. We build things they need and help them talk to other empires when they want to make deals instead of fight. They think we are weak, but they like having us around." "Are you weak?" asked the young Rethan. Dr. Nari Park smiled. "We choose to be peaceful. That is different from being weak. But most aliens do not understand the difference." The next morning, the human team prepared to leave. They had learned much about the Rethan and made new friends. As they walked back to their ship, Dr. Nari noticed something strange in the distance. "Captain, look at those hills," she said, pointing to some rocky areas near the city. "Do you see those shapes? They do not look natural." Hyun-woo looked through his binoculars. There were large stone blocks arranged in patterns. They were very old and covered with strange symbols. "Velthara," he called to the Rethan leader. "What are those structures?" "Old ruins," she said. "They have been there since before our people came to this world. We do not know who built them. The stones are harder than any metal we know. Nothing we do can even scratch them. Dr. Nari felt excited. Ancient ruins were always interesting to study. May we look at them before we leave? Of course, Velthara said. But be careful. Sometimes strange lights come from them at night. The team climbed up to the ruins. They were much bigger up close. The stone blocks were perfectly cut and fit together without any gaps. The symbols carved into them were unlike anything in the human databases. Dr. Nari ran her scanner over the symbols. Captain, these readings are very strange. The material is not stone at all. It is some kind of metal I have never seen before, and there is energy running through it. What kind of energy? Hyunwoo asked. I am not sure. It is very weak, like something that has been sleeping for a long time. But the patterns suggest this is technology, not just art. They spent several hours studying the ruins. The more they learned, the more questions they had. The symbols seemed to be some kind of writing, but it was more complex than any language they knew. The metal was incredibly advanced, but the ruins looked millions of years old. We need to report this to headquarters, Hyunwoo decided. These ruins could be very important. They said goodbye to the Rathan and promised to visit again soon. As the Harmony's Edge flew away from the planet, Dr. Nari was already writing her report. Captain, I think these ruins were built by the architects, she said. Hyunwoo looked surprised. The architects are just a legend. Most people think they never really existed. But what if they did? The stories say they were the first intelligent race in the galaxy. They were supposed to have technology that could do anything. Then one day, they just disappeared. And you think these ruins are proof they were real? Yes. And if I am right, this discovery could change everything. Every empire in the galaxy has been looking for architect technology for thousands of years. Hyunwoo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He knew what this meant. If word got out about the ruins, every warlike empire would want to control them. The peaceful Rethan would be in great danger. Send the report to headquarters, but mark it as classified, he ordered. We need to think carefully about what to do next. As their ship jumped into hyperspace, heading back toward human territory, none of them knew that their discovery would soon change the fate of the entire galaxy. The peaceful days of human exploration were about to end. Far away, in the capital, ships of the great empires, sensors had already detected the energy signature from the ruins. Plans were being made. Fleets were being prepared. The storm was coming, and humanity was about to learn that sometimes being peaceful was not enough. To protect the innocent, Admiral Jinho Lee sat in his office on Earth, reading the same report for the third time. The words had not changed, but he hoped they might make more sense if he read them again. They did not. 30 days, he said out loud to his empty office. They are giving us 30 days. The message had come from Warlord Kethmore of the Velkari Empire. It was not long, but every word was like a knife. The Velkari demanded that humans give up all colonies that had architect ruins. If humans refused, the Velkari would take the colonies by force. Jinho had been a soldier for 40 years. He had helped build the human space fleet from nothing. He knew exactly how many ships humans had and how many the Velkari had. The numbers were not good. His assistant, Commander Yujin Han, walked into the office. Sir, President Choi wants to see you in an hour. The emergency council is meeting. I know, Jinho said. Have we heard from the other empires? Yes, sir. The Crystalline Hegemony and the Hive Mind Collective have joined with the Velkari. They are calling it the Grand Alliance. Jinho felt sick. 3 of the most powerful empires in the galaxy were working together. This had never happened before. Usually they spent their time fighting each other. How many ships? He asked, though. He already knew the answer would be bad. Our best guess is 50,000 warships, maybe more. And we have 200 ships that can really fight. Maybe another 100 that could help if we get desperate. Jinho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the space elevators reaching up into the sky. Ships were coming and going, carrying people and goods between Earth and the orbital stations. Everyone looked calm and happy. They did not know that war was coming. Sir, Commander, Han said quietly, do you think we should just give them what they want? Would you give a loaded gun to a child? Jinho asked. No, sir. Then you understand why we cannot give architect technology to empires that only know how to destroy things? An hour later, Jin-Ho was sitting in the council room with the most important people in human space. President So-Young Choi looked tired. She had been trying to find a peaceful solution for 2 weeks. The other council members looked scared. "The situation is simple," President Choi said. "The aliens want our architect sites. We cannot give them up because the technology is too dangerous. But we also cannot fight 3 empires at once and win." "What? About our allies?" asked Minister Tae-Ho Park. "The Rethan will help us, so will the Gellan Republic." "The Rethan have no warships," said General Hee-Soo Kim. "The Gellan Republic has maybe 50 ships. It would not make any difference." "What? If we share the technology," suggested Ambassador Mi-Young Lee, "we could give them some of what we have learned, but keep the most dangerous parts secret." President Choi shook her head. "I tried that already. Warlord Kethmore said no. They want complete control of all the sites. They think we are too weak to handle such powerful technology." "Maybe they are right," said Minister Park. "We have never fought a real war in space. Our ships are built for exploration and defense, not attack." Admiral Jin-Ho had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now he spoke up. "They are making a mistake." Everyone looked at him. "What do you mean?" President Choi asked. "They think being peaceful makes us weak. They have studied our history, but they only paid attention to the last 200 years. They forgot what we were like before we reached the stars." "What are you talking about?" asked General Kim. "Humans fought wars for thousands of years before we left Earth. We got very good at it. We learned every possible way to kill each other. We built weapons that could destroy entire cities. We only stopped fighting when we realized we were about to destroy our whole planet." "But that was a long time ago," said Ambassador Lee. "We are different now." "Are we?" Jin-Ho asked. "Or did we just choose to be peaceful because we had no one left to fight?" The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, President Choi spoke. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I am suggesting that maybe it is time to remember what we used to be." Before anyone could answer, an aide rushed into the room. "Madam President, we have urgent news from the Proxima system." "What is it?" President Choi asked. "Captain Min-Seok Yoon has made a discovery at the Architect Ruins. He says it is very important." President Choi looked at Admiral Jin-Ho. "Get Captain Yoon on the screen." A few minutes later, Captain Yoon's face appeared on the wall screen. He looked excited and scared at the same time. "Madam President, we have learned something amazing about the Architect technology." "Tell us quickly, Captain," President Choi said. "We do not have much time. The technology is not just advanced, it is alive. It responds to whoever touches it, but it responds differently to different species." "What do you mean?" asked Admiral Jin-Ho. "We tested it with volunteers from different races. When the Gellan touched the control panel, nothing happened. When the Rethan tried, there was a small reaction. But when Dr. Yoon Jung-seo touched it, the whole system came alive." "Why?" asked President Choi. "We think it has something to do with human brain patterns. Our thoughts work differently than alien thoughts. The technology seems to like the way we think." "What does the technology do?" asked General Kim. Captain Yoon looked nervous. "It makes weapons, Madam President. Very powerful weapons. It also makes ships and defensive systems. Everything an army would need." The council members looked at each other. This changed everything. "How long would it take to activate all the architect sites we have found?" asked Admiral Jin-Ho. "If we work fast, maybe 2 weeks," Captain Yoon said. "But, sir, there is something else. The technology seems to know when we are in danger. It is already starting to activate on its own." "Thank you, Captain," President Choi said. "Continue your work, but be careful." After Captain Yoon's image disappeared, the room was silent again. Finally, President Choi spoke. "We have a choice to make. We can surrender and hope the aliens treat us well, or we can fight." "If we fight, we will lose," said Minister Park. "Even with architect technology, we do not have enough people or ships." "Maybe," said Admiral Jin-Ho, "but if we surrender, we definitely lose everything. At least if we fight, we have a chance." "What kind of chance?" asked Ambassador Lee. Jin-Ho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "The aliens think they know us, because they have watched us for 200 years. They have seen us explore and trade and help other species. They think that is all we can do. Is it not? Asked General Kim. No. That is just what we choose to do when no one is trying to kill us. President Choi stood up. I am going to try one more time to make peace. I will offer them joint control of the sites and shared research. If they refuse, then we will show them what humans are really like. The meeting ended, and everyone went to prepare for what was coming. Admiral Jin-ho returned to his office and began making plans. He called his best officers and told them to prepare for war. Sir, asked Commander Han, do you really think we can win? I do not know, Jin-ho said honestly. But I know one thing. When humans fight, we do not do it halfway. If they want a war, we will give them a war they will never forget. 3 days later, President Choi received the aliens' final answer. They rejected her offer. They did not want to share. They wanted everything. That night, Admiral Jin-ho sent a message to every human ship and station in space. It was short but clear. Prepare for war. The enemy thinks we are weak because we choose peace. They are about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight. Humanity has slept long enough. It is time to wake up. Across human space, people began to understand what was happening. The age of peaceful exploration was over. The time of war had begun. Commander Jae-sung Han was drinking coffee on the bridge of the patrol ship Defiance when the universe changed forever. The small ship was doing a routine patrol near New Seoul, one of humanity's newest colonies. It was a quiet morning. Nothing ever happened in this part of space. Then the Valkyrie fleet appeared. Sir, shouted his sensor officer, Ensign Kyung-min Jo. Multiple contacts coming out of hyperspace. 30, 50, over 100 ships. Jae-sung dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he did not notice. On his screen, he could see the massive shapes of Valkyrie dreadnoughts. They were huge, dark ships covered in weapons. Each one was 10 times bigger than his patrol ship. Send a message to New Seoul, he ordered. Tell them to evacuate immediately. Then get us out of here. Sir, they are not responding, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Soo-jin Kim. The Valkyrie are jamming all signals. Jae-sung watched in horror as the alien fleet moved toward New Seoul. The planet had no defenses. It was home to farmers and teachers and artists. There were no soldiers there, no weapons, just innocent people living peaceful lives. Sir, the lead ship is sending a message, Lieutenant Kim said. Put it on screen. The face that appeared was Nightmare. Warlord Kethmore looked like a giant lizard with too many teeth. His eyes were cold and cruel. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. People of New Seoul, he said, you have 30 seconds to surrender. Your government has refused our generous offer. Now you will learn what happens to those who defy the Valkyrie Empire. Jae-sung grabbed his communications panel. This is Commander Han of the Terran Defense Force. These people are innocent civilians. They have nothing to do with your war. Kethmore turned to look at the camera. His mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. There are no innocents in war, human. Only the strong and the dead. The transmission ended. 30 seconds later, the Valkyrie fleet opened fire. Jae-sung had seen many things in his 20 years as a soldier, but he had never seen anything like this. The orbital defense platforms around New Seoul disappeared in bright flashes. The cities on the planet's surface began to burn. Sir, we have to do something, shouted Ensign Jo. Against 100 dreadnoughts, Jae-sung said. We would not last 10 seconds. But he could not just watch. Below them, 2.5 million people were dying. People he had sworn to protect, people who had never hurt anyone. Load all weapons, he ordered. Set course for the flagship. Sir, that is suicide, said Lieutenant Kim. Maybe, but we are going to make them remember that humans do not die quietly. The Defiance was a small ship, but it was fast. Jae-sung pushed the engines to maximum power and dove toward the Valkyrie flagship. His weapons were tiny compared to theirs, but he fired everything he had. The aliens barely noticed. A few of their escort ships turned to swat the annoying human ship. Energy beams reached out like angry fingers. The Defiance shook and sparked as the shields failed. Hull breach on Deck 3, reported his engineer, Petty Officer Dong-woo Park. We are losing life support! Jae-sung did not answer. He was watching the planet die. The beautiful cities were now burning craters. The green forests were turning black. Millions of lives were ending in fire and pain. Just before his ship exploded, Jae-sung managed to send one last message. It was not to fleet headquarters or to his commanding officers. It was a personal message to his sister on Earth. Just 4 words. Remember what we were. News of New Sol's destruction spread across human space like wildfire. The aliens had broadcast the attack to show other species what happened to those who opposed them. They wanted to create fear. Instead, they created something much more dangerous. On Earth, Dr. Nari Park was working in her laboratory when she heard about New Sol. She stood frozen for a long moment, then walked to the architect control panel she had been studying. For weeks, she had been trying to understand how the ancient technology worked. Now she did not care about understanding. She only cared about results. She placed her hand on the smooth metal surface. The panel grew warm under her touch. Symbols began to glow. Energy flowed through circuits that had been dark for millions of years. "Computer," she said to her lab system, "record everything. Full scan of all energy patterns and molecular changes." The architect machine responded to her thoughts as much as her words. It seemed to understand that humanity was in danger. Systems that had slept for eons began to wake up. In hidden chambers deep underground, manufacturing systems started to build things that had not existed for ages. Similar scenes were happening at every architect site in human space. The ancient technology was activating everywhere at once. Scientists who had spent months making tiny progress suddenly found themselves controlling systems beyond their wildest dreams. But the real change was not in the machines. It was in the people. Admiral Jin-Ho Lee called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. When they gathered in the war room, he could see the anger in their eyes. These were people who had spent their careers protecting civilians and exploring new worlds. Now they had watched helplessly as innocents died. "The rules have changed," Jin-Ho said. "For 200 years we have been explorers and peacekeepers. Starting today, we remember how to be soldiers." "What are your orders, sir?" asked Captain Yoon-ji Kim of the destroyer Retribution. "The Velkari think they have won because they destroyed one colony. They are wrong. They have not won anything. They have just reminded us who we used to be." He activated a holographic display showing human space. Red dots marked the positions of alien fleets. Blue dots showed human forces. "For too long, we have fought like we were still exploring. We spread our ships out to cover as much space as possible. We tried to protect everything. That ends now." "What do you mean?" asked Commander Young-Ho Seo. "We are going to fight like humans have always fought. We are going to pick our battles. We are going to hit hard and disappear. We are going to make them afraid to sleep at night." The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Orders were given. By the time it ended, the human fleet was no longer a collection of peaceful explorers. It had become something the galaxy had not seen for a very long time, a human war machine. Captain Yoon-ji Kim was given the first mission. Her ship, the Retribution, had been upgraded with new architect technology. The ancient systems had transformed it from a simple destroyer into something much more dangerous. 3 days after New Sol died, Captain Kim found a Velkari supply convoy heading toward the front lines. There were 20 cargo ships protected by 5 cruisers. Under the old rules, she would have reported their position and waited for reinforcements. Under the new rules, she attacked immediately. The Retribution appeared out of hyperspace, right, in the middle of the convoy. But instead of appearing normally, it used architect technology to phase in and out of regular space. The Velkari weapons could not get a lock on it. Kim's ship fired once. The energy beam passed through the shields of the lead cruiser like they were not there. The alien ship exploded from the inside as its ammunition stores went off. Before the other Velkari ships could react, the Retribution phased back into hyperspace and disappeared. The attack lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 5 Velkari warships were destroyed, and 20 supply ships were drifting in space with their crews dead or unconscious. Captain Kim sent a message to the survivors. "This is Captain Kim of the Terran Fleet. You wanted to see what humans look like when we stop being peaceful? Congratulations, your wish has been granted." The message was recorded and sent to every Valkyrie base in the sector. Within hours, it had spread to the highest levels of the alien empire. Warlord Kethmore watched the recording in his command center. Around him, his officers looked worried. This was not how the war was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to surrender or die quickly. They were not supposed to fight back like this. One ship, Kethmore growled. One human ship destroyed 5 of ours. Sir, said his tactical officer, perhaps we underestimated their capabilities. No, Kethmore slammed his fist on the control panel. They are weak. They have always been weak. This is just luck. But even as he said it, he knew something had changed. The humans who had begged for peace 30 days ago were gone. In their place was something older and much more dangerous. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was very, very angry. 6 months after New Sol burned, the galaxy had learned to fear a word they had never taken seriously before. Human. Colonel Dong-hyun Choi stood in the command center of the research station Prometheus, watching his screens with satisfaction. His latest invention was working perfectly. He called it Ghost Protocol, and it was changing the way humans fought wars. Target confirmed destroyed, reported Lieutenant Hyo-jin Lee from her console. The Valkyrie base on Kepler 7 is gone. Good, Dong-hyun said. How long were we in normal space? 14 seconds, sir. Excellent. Mark another victory for the Ghosts. Ghost Protocol was simple but deadly. Human ships would jump into hyperspace right next to enemy positions, fire their weapons while still partially in hyperspace, then disappear before the enemy could respond. To the aliens, it looked like humans could attack from nowhere and vanish like spirits. The truth was more complex. Architect technology allowed human ships to exist in multiple dimensions at once. They could be in hyperspace and normal space. At the same time, it was impossible for most species to understand, but humans seemed to have a natural ability to control it. Sir, said Lieutenant Lee, we are getting reports from Major Sung's operation. Put it through. Major Hyewan Sung appeared on the screen. Behind her, Dong-hyun could see the bridge of her command ship, the swarm leader. She looked tired, but happy. Colonel, the swarm doctrine worked even better than we hoped, she said. We deployed 3,000 drones against the crystalline hegemony's 3rd fleet. They are completely destroyed. Casualties? Dong-hyun asked. None on our side. The drones learned the enemy attack patterns in real time and adapted. By the end of the battle, the aliens could not hit anything. Dong-hyun smiled. Major Sung had developed what she called swarm doctrine. Instead of using big ships, she used thousands of small drones that could think and learn together. Each drone was no bigger than a fighter craft, but together they could overwhelm any fleet. The best part was that the drones were controlled by architect technology. They could coordinate instantly across vast distances. When one drone learned something, they all learned it immediately. Fighting them was like fighting a single organism with thousands of eyes and hands. What about the hive mind collective? Dong-hyun asked. That was the most interesting part, Major Sung said. They tried to take control of our drones with their mental powers, but the architect technology protected our systems. Their psychic attacks actually made our drones stronger. This was another surprise the aliens had not expected. The hive mind. Collective was famous for their ability to control enemy technology with their thoughts. They had won many battles by turning enemy weapons against each other, but human-controlled architect technology was immune to their powers. Send your report to Fleet Command, Dong-hyun said. Admiral Park will want to hear about this. After the communication ended, Dong-hyun returned to his work. He was developing new ways for humans to fight wars. Every week brought new discoveries about what architect technology could do. Every week brought new victories against enemies who had thought humans were weak. Far away, Fleet Admiral Taemin Park was preparing for the largest human military operation in history. His sister Nari had been right about the architect technology. It was not just advanced, it was perfect for human minds to control. Status report, he said to his staff. All fleets are in position, reported his aide, Captain Jin-Woo Moon. 10,000 ships ready for the attack on Vega Prime. Enemy strength? 40. 1,000 ships from all 3 alien empires. They have turned Vega Prime into their main fortress, and they think their numbers will save them, Taemin said quietly. The Battle of Vega Prime would prove them wrong. The aliens still thought of war the old way. Bigger fleets meant victory. They had not yet understood that humans had changed. The rules. When the battle began, the alien fleet moved forward in traditional formation. 40,000 ships in neat rows, firing their weapons in coordinated volleys. It was an impressive sight that had terrified enemies for centuries. The human fleet appeared to be much smaller. Only 10,000 ships spread out in a loose formation. To alien eyes, it looked like certain defeat for the humans. But the humans were not fighting like individuals anymore. Every ship was connected to every other ship through architect technology. They shared thoughts, strategies, and sensor data instantly. 10,000 ships fought like one massive organism. All ships, execute ghost formation, Admiral Park ordered. The human fleet seemed to shimmer and disappear. Half the ships phased into hyperspace while the other half remained in normal space. To the aliens, it looked like the human fleet had cut its size in half. The Velkari commander, Admiral Thekvor, smiled. Attack the remaining ships. Destroy them quickly. The alien fleet charged forward, but they were attacking targets that were not really there. The human ships in normal space were just projections. The real ships were attacking from hyperspace. Now, whispered Admiral Park. The human fleet reappeared all around the alien formation. They had used hyperspace to position themselves perfectly. Instead of 40,000 ships fighting 10,000, it was now 40,000 ships being attacked. From all directions at once. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 30,000 alien ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 847 ships. But the most important victory was not the ships destroyed. It was the fear in the aliens' eyes when they realized what had happened. Impossible, Admiral Thekvor said, as his flagship died around him. How did weak humans do this to us? He never got an answer. His ship exploded before he could say anything else. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than the aliens wanted. Species that had been neutral in the war began to question which side was really stronger. Some began to think that maybe the humans were not as weak as everyone believed. On the captured world of Velkton Prime, General Sun Hee Yang was proving that humans had not forgotten how to fight on the ground as well as in space. Her army had surrounded the planet's capital city. Inside, Warlord Kethmore himself waited with his personal guard. Warlord, she said through the communication system, your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is falling. Surrender now, and your soldiers will be treated with honor. Never, Kethmore roared. Velkari do not surrender to weaklings. Very well, General Yang said calmly. All units, begin the final assault. The battle for the capital lasted 2 days. The Velkari fought with desperate courage, but they were fighting an enemy they did not understand. Human soldiers used architect technology that let them move through walls and appear behind enemy lines. They fought with precision and teamwork that the aliens had never seen before. When it was over, General Yang found Warlord Kethmore in his throne room. He was wounded, but still alive. His guards were all dead around him. You fought like demons, he said, breathing heavily. No. Mercy. No hesitation. How can a peaceful species fight like this? Because we are not peaceful, General Yang said. We choose to be peaceful when no one threatens us. You threatened us. Now you see what we are really like. Instead of killing him, she ordered her medics to treat his wounds. Then she made him watch as human ships evacuated Velkari civilians from the war zones, medical ships, rescue ships, supply ships bringing food and medicine to refugee camps. This is also what humans are like, she told him. We can destroy you completely, or we can help you rebuild. The choice is yours. Kethmore stared at her in confusion. This was not how wars were supposed to work. Victors were supposed to enslave or kill the defeated. They were not supposed to offer mercy. Why? He asked. Because that is what separates us from you, General Yang said. We know when to fight and when to stop fighting. You only know how to fight. Across the galaxy, the same pattern was repeating. Human forces were winning battle after battle. Not just because of their technology, but because of how they used it. They fought with intelligence and creativity. They adapted faster than their enemies. They turned the aliens' own strengths against them. The crystalline hegemony had ships with perfect shields that could stop any attack. But human weapons could phase through the shields like they were not there. The Hive Mind Collective had perfect coordination between all their forces, but humans could disrupt their mental networks with psionics enhanced by architect technology. Every advantage the aliens had possessed was being turned into a weakness. Every assumption they had made about human weakness was proving to be wrong, and the most terrifying thing of all was that the humans were just getting started. They were learning and improving with every battle. What they could do today was nothing compared to what they would be able to do tomorrow. The galaxy was beginning to understand a truth that humans had known for thousands of years. There is no enemy more dangerous than one who has nothing left to lose, and no force more terrible than righteous anger backed by unlimited creativity. The age of alien dominance was ending. The age of humanity had begun. 2 years had passed since the massacre at New Sol. The galaxy barely remembered the time when humans were considered weak. Now, when alien children misbehaved, their parents warned them that the humans might come. Marshal Guy Moon stood on the command deck of the massive battleship Eternal Vigilance, watching the greatest fleet in galactic history assemble around him. 500,000 human ships spread across space like a metal constellation. Each ship was equipped with the most advanced architect technology ever discovered. "Final fleet count, sir," reported his aide, Commander Sujin Park. 497,812 ships ready for combat. "And the enemy?" Gite asked. "The Transcendent Assembly has gathered at the galactic core. 847 different species. Over 1 million ships." Gite nodded. The aliens had finally done something smart. After losing battle after battle to human forces, they had put aside their ancient hatreds and formed one massive alliance. Every surviving empire, every independent world, every pirate clan had joined together for one purpose: stop the humans before they conquered everything. "They think numbers will save them," said Admiral Hyun-woo Kim, who had been promoted to Joint Fleet Command. "They still do not understand how we fight." "Maybe," Gite said, "but 1 million ships is still 1 million ships. Even if we win, the cost will be terrible." On the research vessel Prometheus, Captain Eugene Bay was studying the most disturbing discovery of the war. Deep in the galactic core, the aliens had found something that should have stayed lost. "Dr. Song, show me the readings again," she said to her science officer. Dr. Myung-ho Song pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. "The energy signature is definitely architect technology, but it is much older than anything we have found before, and much more powerful." "How much more powerful?" "According to our calculations, it could destroy entire star systems. Maybe even force stars to explode." Eugene felt cold fear in her stomach. "A weapon? That is what worries me," Dr. Song said. "The architects built many things, but we have never found any weapons before. They seem to be a peaceful species, like humans used to be." "Used to be?" Eugene repeated quietly. "Send this data to Marshal Moon immediately. He needs to know what we are facing." When Gite received the report, he called an emergency meeting of his senior commanders. They gathered in the briefing room of the Eternal Vigilance, the finest military minds humanity had ever produced. "The situation has changed," he told them. "The aliens have found an architect superweapon. Something that can destroy stars." The room was silent for a moment. Then Admiral Kim spoke up. "How do we fight something like that?" "Very carefully," said General Hee-Soo Kim, who commanded the Marine Forces. "If they can destroy stars, they can destroy planets. They can destroy entire systems." "Why have they not used it yet?" asked Fleet Admiral Taemin Park. "Because they do not know how to control it," Gite said. "Our intelligence says they are still trying to figure out how to activate it safely." "How long do we have?" asked Colonel Dong-Hyun Choi. "Maybe a week, maybe less." The commanders looked at each other. They had won every battle so far, but this was different. This was not about tactics or technology. This was about survival. "We attack immediately," decided Gite, "before they can use the weapon." But even as the human fleet began its final advance toward the galactic core, Captain Yujin Bei was making another discovery. She had been studying the superweapon from long range, trying to understand how it worked. "Commander Kang," she called to her tactical officer. "I need you to see this." Commander Seokjin Kang looked at the data she was showing him. "What am I looking at, Captain?" "The weapon's control system. Look at the activation sequence." Seokjin studied the patterns. "It requires specific thought patterns to activate, like our architect technology." "Exactly. But look closer." "What kind of thought patterns?" Seokjin's eyes widened as he understood. "Aggressive thoughts, violent intentions. It feeds on the desire to destroy, which means that species who only know how to fight are perfect for controlling it. But humans fight for different reasons," Yujin finished. "We fight to protect, not to destroy. We fight to create peace, not to spread chaos." She grabbed the communication panel. "Get me Marshal Moon immediately." When Gite heard her report, everything changed. The superweapon was not just dangerous because of its power. It was dangerous because it was designed to be used by exactly the kind of species that humanity was fighting against. "The architects were not just testing our technology," Yujin explained over the communication link. "They were testing our character. The weapon only works for species that enjoy destruction. For species like us, who fight only when necessary, it will not activate." "Are you certain?" Gite asked. "As certain as I can be without testing it. But, sir, there is something else. If we can get someone close to the weapon's core, we might be able to shut it down permanently." "How close?" "Someone would have to go inside the weapon itself. It would be a suicide mission." Gite looked around the command deck. Every officer was listening to the conversation. Every face showed the same expression, grim determination. "I will go," said Commander Seokjin Kang. "No," said Admiral Kim. "I will go." "I outrank both of you," said General Kim. "It should be me." Gite held up his hand for silence. "It will be whoever volunteers. This is not an order anyone should have to follow." Every officer on the command deck stepped forward. Every single one. In the end, Commander Seokjin Kang led the mission because he understood the technology best. His team consisted of 12 volunteers, the best engineers and soldiers in the human fleet. They used a small ship equipped with the most advanced phasing technology ever built. It could exist in multiple dimensions at once, allowing it to pass through any physical barrier. As they approached the superweapon, they could see the entire alien fleet surrounding it. Over 1 million ships, all waiting for the weapon to activate so they could destroy humanity forever. "Remember," Seokjin told his team, "we are not here to destroy anything. We are here to save lives. Keep that thought in your minds no matter what happens." They phased through the weapon's outer hull and found themselves in a vast chamber filled with ancient machinery. The architect technology was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Energy flowed through crystal conduits like liquid light. Control panels glowed with symbols that hurt to look at. "There," said engineer Min Jae Lim, pointing to a central platform. "That must be the main control system." As they approached, the weapon seemed to sense their presence. The symbols began to glow brighter. Energy patterns swirled around them, like living things. "It is trying to read our minds," said Seokjin. "Remember why we are here. Think about the people we are trying to save, not the enemies we are fighting." The weapon's energy reached into their thoughts, searching for the aggression and hatred it needed to activate. But it found something else instead. It found humans who fought not because they enjoyed killing, but because they wanted to protect innocence. It found soldiers who preferred mercy to vengeance, who chose peace over war whenever possible. The ancient machine paused, confused. This was not what it was designed for. These were not the thoughts it was programmed to respond to. "Now!" shouted Seokjin. His team moved quickly, placing devices on key control points throughout the chamber. The devices were designed to disrupt the weapon's power systems permanently. The superweapon tried to resist, but it could not function without the aggressive thoughts it was designed to feed on. The human minds controlling it were too peaceful, too focused on protecting rather than destroying. One by one, the weapon's systems shut down. The energy conduits went dark. The control panels stopped glowing. "It is done," Seokjin reported to the fleet. "The weapon is dead." "Can you get out?" asked Marshal Moon. Seokjin looked around the chamber. The weapon was collapsing as its systems failed. Architect technology was unstable when it lost power suddenly. "No, sir," he said calmly. "But that is all right. We knew this was a one-way trip." "Commander." "Sir, tell my family that I died protecting them. Tell them that humanity chose to be better than its enemies. Tell them that we proved the architects right to trust us." The weapon exploded, taking Commander Kang and his team with it. But their sacrifice saved not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy. Without the superweapon, the alien alliance had no way to stop the advancing human fleet. The final battle was brief. Faced with the choice between destruction and surrender, most of the alien species chose to surrender. They had seen what humans could do when pushed to war. They had also seen that humans knew when to stop fighting. When the last alien ship surrendered, Marshal Gite Moon sent a message to the entire galaxy: "The war is over, but the peace is just beginning." Any species that wants to live in harmony with others is welcome in the new galactic order. Any species that chooses war will face the consequences. We are humanity. We have shown you what we become when forced to fight. Now we will show you what we become when given the chance to build. The age of endless galactic war was over. The age of human-led peace had begun. 5 years had passed since the last battle of the Great War. Admiral Hyun-Woo Kim, now Supreme Fleet Commander of the Terran hegemony, stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Seoul. The planet had been rebuilt, more beautiful than before. Green parks and silver cities covered the surface where once there had been only ash and crater. "The Rethan delegation has arrived," reported his aide, Captain Bo Ram Song. She had stayed with him through the entire war, from those peaceful days of exploration to the darkest moments of combat. "They are requesting permission to establish a permanent embassy?" "Granted," Hyun-Woo said. "The Rethan have always been our friends. They deserve a place of honor in the new order." Through the great window, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. Velkari cargo vessels carried goods to human colonies. Crystalline hegemony science ships worked alongside human researchers. Even ships from the former hive mind collective, now calling themselves the individual collective, brought their unique perspectives to joint projects. "Sir," Captain Song continued, "President Choi wants to review the integration reports before tomorrow's ceremony." "Of course. Send them to her immediately." Tomorrow would mark the 5th anniversary of the war's end. It was being celebrated across the galaxy as Unity Day, the day when 40% of known space had come together under human leadership, not through conquest, but through choice. In her office on Earth, President So-Young Choi was reading those same reports with satisfaction. The numbers told an amazing story. Crime rates in human space were at historic lows. Trade between species had increased by 300%. Scientific discoveries were happening faster than ever before as different species shared their knowledge freely. "The former Velkari territories are requesting full integration status," said her assistant, Minister Taeho Park. "Admiral Thekvon says his people are ready to accept human leadership completely." So-Young smiled. Admiral Thekvon had been one of Warlord Kethmore's top commanders during the war. After the surrender, he had expected to be executed or imprisoned. Instead, the humans had offered him a choice: help rebuild what the war had destroyed, or spend his life in comfortable exile. He chose to help. Many former enemies had made the same choice. "What about the integration problems on Vortex Prime?" she asked. "Resolved." It turns out the issue was not cultural differences, but a simple misunderstanding about work schedules. The Zephyrian species sleeps for 3 days at a time, so they thought humans were lazy for sleeping every day. So-Young laughed. And now, human and Zephyrian work teams alternate shifts. Both species are much happier. This was how most problems were solved in the new galaxy, through communication and compromise rather than force. The humans had learned something important during the war. The same creativity that made them excellent at fighting also made them excellent at building peace. In the Architect Research Center on Proxima Centauri B, Dr. Nari Park was making her final preparations for the most important experiment in galactic history. She stood before the central control panel of the largest architect facility ever discovered, surrounded by scientists from 20 different species. "Are we certain this will work?" asked Dr. Velthara, the old Rethan scientist who had become Nari's closest research partner. "As certain as we can be," Nari replied. "The architect technology responds to peaceful intentions. If we are truly committed to using it only for creation and protection, it should activate the next level of systems." For 5 years, they had been working to understand the full potential of architect technology. They had unlocked weapons and ships and defensive systems. But the ancient machines hinted at something more, technology that could terraform dead worlds, heal damaged ecosystems, even extend the natural lifespans of entire species. "Beginning activation sequence," Nari announced. She placed her hands on the control panel. Around the room, scientists from every member species of the Terran hegemony did the same with their assigned consoles. Human, Rethan, reformed Velkari, peaceful crystalline hegemony members, even former hive mind drones who had chosen to think for themselves. The machines hummed to life. Energy flowed through conduits that had been dark since the original architects vanished. But this time, something was different. The technology did not just respond to human thoughts, it responded to the combined intentions of all the species working together. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Kethanan, a former Velkari warrior who now studied xenobiology. "The system is accepting input from all of us simultaneously." "Because we are all working toward the same goal," Nari realized. "The architects designed this technology for species that could cooperate, not dominate." New systems activated throughout the facility. Holographic displays showed star maps with thousands of dead worlds that could be brought back to life. Medical databases contained cures for diseases that had plagued every known species. Engineering blueprints revealed how to build ships that could travel between galaxies. But the most important discovery was a message. In the central chamber, a holographic figure appeared. Tall, graceful, with features that seemed to combine aspects of every intelligent species that had ever existed. "Greetings, inheritors," the figure said in a voice like music. "We are the architects. We left this technology as a test and a gift for those who would come after us." The room fell silent. After millions of years, they were finally hearing from the galaxy's most mysterious species. "Many species have found our ruins. Most sought to use our technology for conquest and destruction. They failed because our machines respond only to intentions that match our own. The desire to create, to protect, to nurture life." The holographic architect smiled. "You have passed our test. You have learned to fight when necessary, but you have also learned when to stop fighting. You have shown that strength and compassion can exist together. We now grant you access to our greatest gift, the ability to transform not just worlds, but the galaxy itself. Use this knowledge wisely. Build something better than what came before. And when the time comes, teach others as we have taught you." The message ended, but the technology remained active. In the weeks that followed, the first architect-enhanced terraforming ships began their work on dead worlds throughout human space. Planets that had been barren rocks for millions of years bloomed with new life. Former battlefields became gardens. Destroyed cities were rebuilt better than before. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together on projects that benefited everyone. In the former Velkari capital, Warlord Kethmore lived in comfortable retirement. He spent his days writing memoirs and tending a small garden. He had refused all offers of positions in the new government, saying he was too old to learn new ways. But sometimes, when he worked among his flowers, he would think about the human general who had spared his life. Sun He Yang had visited him once, a year after the war ended. "Why?" he had asked her. "Why did you show mercy to your enemies?" "Because mercy is what separates civilization from barbarism," she had replied. "Anyone can learn to destroy. Only the wise learn when to create instead." Now, as he watered his roses, Kethmore finally understood what she meant. His garden was small, but it was beautiful. Creating it had brought him more satisfaction than conquering a dozen worlds ever had. On Earth, Admiral Jinho Lee was giving his final speech as he retired from military service. He stood before an audience that included humans and aliens, former enemies and old friends. For 200 years, humanity explored the galaxy in peace, he said. Then we were forced to remember how to wage war. We did what we had to do to survive and protect the innocent. But the greatest victory was not winning the war. It was remembering how to build peace. In the audience, Ambassador Mi-young Lee, no relation, nodded approvingly. She had spent the last 5 years negotiating treaties and trade agreements with dozens of species. The work was slow and sometimes frustrating, but it was also deeply satisfying. The galaxy is not perfect, Admiral Lee continued. There are still conflicts and disagreements. There are still species that choose isolation over cooperation, but for the first time in galactic history, war is the exception rather than the rule. As he spoke, similar ceremonies were taking place on thousands of worlds. Unity Day was being celebrated not just by humans, but by all the species that had chosen to join the new galactic order. On the rebuilt world of New Sol, children who had been born after the war played together in parks where the cities had once burned. Human children, Rethan children, even young Velkari learned and laughed together. They spoke a dozen different languages, but they all understood the same concepts: cooperation, friendship, hope for the future. Commander Jae Sung Han's sister, Dr. Soo Jin Han, taught at the new Galactic University. She often told her students about her brother's last message. Remember what we were. He meant that we should remember our capacity for both creation and destruction, she would explain. We should remember that we have the power to choose which one we use. The greatest strength is not in being able to destroy your enemies, but in being able to turn your enemies into friends. In deep space, the human fleet continued its patrols, but now they patrolled for different reasons. Instead of hunting for threats, they searched for species that needed help. And